And just to let you know, we do a whole bunch of events. If you want to follow us on Facebook, we post them all there. But basically, this weekend we got conspiracy drafts happening all weekend. So Saturday and Sunday, anytime you want to come down, 8-man pods. Just whenever we get an eighth person, we just start up another draft pod. So that's gonna be really sweet. I'm actually excited for that one.
As you can see here from Gray, we have a fetch to 19 with an island, and he's leading off with a brainstorm.
Not the brainstorms we necessarily like to see in Legacy, the end of turn 1 brainstorm, especially.
Yeah, it's not the greatest, but you know, that can mean a lot of things. It could mean he's digging for a land. It could mean he's just trying to set up for a Force of Will. He's playing against a Mud, which is a very explosive deck, and sometimes you need to counter their plays here, especially with Cavern of Souls being 4-off, and most of the Mud decks it is a 4-off in Pat's deck. I know. Sometimes you need to be a little bit more aggressive with your counter spells than you would otherwise be.
And if he's setting up counterbalance here, I definitely like that play.
Yeah, counterbalance not actually a particularly strong card against the Mud deck. Reason being that most of the Mud's threats are actually 5, 6, 7, 8 mana. So there's actually not a whole lot of cards that counter. It can counter, however, some of the utility cards you see down here, like the Grim Monolith, the Lightning Greaves, Chalice of the Void, cards of that nature. Chalice is a big player in this matchup.
You're actually kind of our regional expert on Mud, aren't you?
A little bit. I've played a lot of Mud. Yeah, that's kind of my deck of choice. I've been running a version just without the cloud posts, going a little bit more of a Mishra's Factory type of approach. But the 12 post is good, man. It gives them a lot of mana.
Mishra's Factory is probably a little bit better against the decks that are trying to attack your life total. Making a 3/3 as a blocker is pretty good.
And as you can see, there's a Voltaic key out there, which is also a combo with the Factory. You can untap the Factory and then tap it to pump itself, making it a 4/4 or bigger. As you can see here from Gray, he's got the second counterbalance. Again, not particularly strong in this matchup. The second counterbalance doesn't do a whole lot for Gray. But, you know, it can still cut off some of his utility cards. As we see here, he's tapping 2 mana, and he's going for Chalice of the Void. And Gray is definitely hoping to get this countered here.
Yeah, well, the thing about the double counterbalance is he does get 2 triggers, so he can opt to fetch here.
With the fetch land out, he can now he can go try to find a 2 if he wants to. Right. He elects not to do that. Instead, holding the fetch. That fetch is very valuable in the Miracles deck.
Looks like he wanted that land, or is this?
He wanted whatever card was on top.
I think it was Tundra, but that's kind of.
Was it Tundra?
Yeah, it seems kind of weird to want the Tundra here, unless he's gonna.
I would expect most likely it would be Jace the Mind Sculptor here. It's possible he also has a card like Fencer, but yeah, almost undoubtedly one of those powerful 4-drops. And as we see here, it looks like it will be Jace the Mind Sculptor. Incredibly powerful in this matchup against the Mud deck. However, of note, the Mud player does have Lightning Greaves, which means if he can cast a big spell here, like a Lodestone Golem, for instance, that Jace is going to be dead.
Super dead. Unless, of course, Gray has counterspells or something of the sort in hands.
Correct. So we can see Pat here is going to untap with the ability to produce 4 mana. Let's see if he has a threat. 3, this is probably Metalworker, and it is Metalworker.
With the Lightning Greaves
trigger. I can't actually see what's on
It was
top
actually
there.
Entreat the Angels. So that was.
Oh, Entreat the Angels. So he blind flipped it. That was a smart top with the Jace for Gray there. Put that on 3, lock out that Metalworker, and now he's just going to go for the 1 Angel.
Pat might have been choked.
Oh no, he's going for 2 Angels. Sorry.
Pat might have been choked on mana a bit there, but I would like to see the Wasteland and the Tundra just so he didn't have double white for the Entreat the Angels.
That is a very good point. Revealing that Entreat the Angels off of the top, he could have Wastelanded that Tundra and cut Gray off of double white. That's very true, and that was probably a big mistake by Pat there. Now Gray with 2 Angels and a Jace in a pretty commanding board position, except we see a Cloud Post, I believe, off the top.
Another Cloud Post off the top. So that gives him enough mana to do a lot here in this turn or the next turn.
And here we have Lodestone Golem. Unfortunately, a turn too late. Now that those 2 Entreat the Angel tokens are out there, a lot less effective. And we see a Force of Will from Gray, taking care of that Lodestone Golem. And I suspect he's going to be pretty aggressive with those Angels. Pat being at 16,
yeah, I don't
that's
think,
a two-turn clock.
I definitely don't think he wants to be, like sit back on them. I think he just wants to, try to finish the game out as fast as possible, especially when he already has a Jace on the field. Like,
Absolutely.
There's a lot for Pat to be dealing with right now.
Yeah, and I think he just wants to deny Pat draw steps. He doesn't want Cavern or Souls, Kodolfo the Forge Master to come down.
Yeah.
And, possibly, hit him with a Blightsteel Colossus. He's gonna do everything to prevent that, and he decided the best way to do that is simply to deny Pat draw steps.
Oh, he did take 8 though.
Yeah, he's at
11.
11.
Gain 3 from Glimmer Post, actually kind of relevant there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, buys him an entire turn, produces 2 more mana with those Cloud Posts, and he looks like he's just scooping up.
Yeah, that's a pretty quick game 1.
Yeah, I'm not sure why he did that. We could have had that life total wrong. We might have missed an Ancient Tomb.
I think that maybe he thought that the rest of his top decks weren't that relevant, but I'm not entirely sure there. I did see in that last turn, I didn't quite get a good look at it, but was that Wormcoil Engine and then Reveal Terminus off the top? That's just kind of a...
I missed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he might have just scooped there.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Mud deck powerful. It's amazing how that deck can come back from games that you think have it wrapped up, because you have like Cavern of Souls, Kodolfo Forge Master, play it, Lightning Greaves, activate, Blightsteel, and then you can be in a whole lot of trouble.
Yeah.
He's got access to cards like Platinum Empyrean, which can stop him from dying. Cards like the Staring Bridge. So there's a lot in there.
There's also a lot of cards that aren't very good and like to make your top decks like pretty bad, as well as your mulligans. So I mean, like,
Absolutely.
even I was watching actually a game prior to this with Mud versus Jund, and the guy got the Mud player got turn 1 Tormod script, which isn't that bad, but then into Ancient Tomb Grim Monolith Trinisphere against a Jund deck on the play. And it just seemed like, well, he already has Ancient Tomb in play. Like, how is a Jund deck going to come back from this? But it just, Jund deck played land, Liliana.
Yeah,
and then the Mud player just didn't do anything for a couple turns, and Liliana was enough to like kind of wrap up that game.
Yeah, with the decks like Mud, at least for me, what I've found out is playing too many of those cards that don't actually help you win the game tends to be a mistake.
Right.
Like Trinisphere is great, Chalice is great, Lightning Greaves is great,
Voltaic
Key is great. Yeah. All those cards are great, but the cards that don't produce you mana and don't win you the game, you have to minimize the amount of those cards as possible, because then you get a hand that's like a few lands, a few Chalices and Trinispheres and Voltaic Keys, and you give your opponents too much time to wiggle out of those things.
Definitely.
You want to be able to land a Wormcoil or a Lodestone and then go after them.
Yeah.
And if you have just a bunch of Trinispheres, you can't really do that.
Can't do that. Yeah, I think, and that's kind of why I think Lodestone Golem is probably one of the best cards in the deck, just because it's a 5/3 beater. It costs 4 mana.
Yeah.
Like really efficient, and also like taxes are land based a little bit. You get to like Wasteland afterwards, and then they're just so far behind because you were able to get them out on like turn 2, 3.
Turn 1 Ancient Tomb, turn 2 City of Traders, Lodestone Golem is a big problem for a lot of decks, especially against the decks that are really planning on using Ponders and Brainstorms and planning to use those cards to get consistency. In those decks, you've got to pay 2 for those cards. You can't play a Brainstorm then play a Delver of Secrets. So it costs 4 mana. So yeah, Lodestone Golem is extremely powerful. It's one of the cards that, it's just pretty much good in every matchup. It's inexpensive and it kills them dead.
Yeah, that's kind of like a relevant point too. It's not just non-creature spells; it's all non-artifact spells. So even cards like
all non-artifact spells.
Even just like Tarmogoyf costs you 3 mana.
Tarmogoyf costs 3 mana. I mean,
Tarmogoyf on 3 mana is not that good,
especially against those 3-color kind of aggressive decks like the Delver decks that are really skimping on their mana base. That 1 mana can cost them.
Definitely. So what do you expect to see from the sideboard from the Mud player? I'm not actually familiar too much.
Typically Mud sideboards tend to have a lot of Ratchet Bombs, a lot of Phyrexian Revokers, some kind of Graveyard Disruption, Relic of Progenitus, a couple one-off tutory artifacts. You might have a Spine of Ishsaw, you might have Sundering Titan, cards of that nature. In this Miracles matchup, if he does have a Sundering Titan in his sideboard, that will almost undoubtedly be coming in. It's incredibly good against the Miracles deck.
It doesn't kill non-basics, right? It kills any
kills 1 land of each basic land type.
So it actually does.
It does kill. Yeah, if they had Island and Plains out, you can kill an Island and kill a Plains. If they Swords of Plowshares it, you're going to kill 2 more because it's only when it leaves play, not when it dies.
Yeah.
It's very nasty.
So God, Sundering Titan, that just seems.
Yeah, most of the time you play it, you'll be destroying 4 lands with it, especially against these these decks, they're also playing Volcanic Island. Sometimes you can get 3.
Oh,
And
Volcanic
the
Island,
Volcanic Island not helping the Miracles player in this matchup, as the Pyroblast will be staying in the sideboard.
some of them are actually playing at main board too, which would just be kind of the saddest thing to see, especially against a deck that's playing Chalice on one.
Yeah, the Mud deck actually does blank a couple of highly played cards. One would be Flusterstorm. There's actually no card in the Mud deck that Flusterstorm hits, and Misdirection doesn't do anything. So often there's a couple dead cards in your opponent's deck.
Actually
kind of
nothing.
nice. Actual nothing.
Wow.
Yeah.
I never even thought of that. Misdirection being. I was trying to actually just last week was trying to think of a card where Misdirection wasn't almost as good as Force in a combo deck when you're just trying to counter their counter spell.
Right.
And that's actually probably one of them.
Yeah, Mud deck.
Get
them dead.
Out of the Chalice or something. And from the Miracles player, I'm guessing just more removal, maybe some more counter spells. Flusterstorm, obviously not that good.
Miracles most likely will be putting in, if they have it, cards like Humility. I believe Gray does run Humility in his sideboard, which is a beating against the Mud deck. He's also going to put in cards, just value removal spells, you disenchants if you have them, cards like that.
I definitely think he's playing. I think he's playing 2 disenchants. So that's probably a really good spell.
Yeah, those will definitely come in. Just cards you can kind of 1-for-1 the Mud deck, or you can kind of approach it in different ways. You can either attack their mana base, or you can attack their threats.
Yeah.
So depending on what they do, if they look like they're stumbling on mana and they've got that, tap a Grim Monolith to play a Metal Worker, boom, you kill the Metal Worker, and they might be in trouble. Or you can play the game where you're like, well, I'll let them get their mana. I'm just gonna counter their big spells and kill their big spells.
Yeah, totally. Well, let's see. Well into game 2.
Okay.
We were talking for quite a while.
Apparently. So we see Pat Taylor with the Ratchet Bomb. He did bring in the Ratchet Bomb. I actually like this play by Pat. It seems a little odd, but Entreat the Angels is one of the Miracle's best ways to actually kill the Mud deck. So I actually do very much like Ratchet Bomb in this matchup for that reason. The Mud deck does not deal with flyers very well. Trading Post by the Mud deck. That is not a card I've actually played with. I've thought about it. It's hilarious. I like it quite a bit. But as you can see, we do have the Trading Post out. Unfortunately, Gray Swanson has boarded the Jace the Mind Sculptor train, as they say, and he will be getting card advantage off of that.
That's a really good spell in this matchup. I think Trading Post is actually a pretty good spell in this matchup, just giving him a little bit more inevitability than he normally would have.
Yeah, as you can see, he is making goats. All the goats. And it looks like he's down to about 2 cards, I think. And we see a Wasteland targeting the Volcanic Island.
And the Wasteland, of course, is going to cut him off Goat Napper.
Yes.
Not being able to have
it must defend against the Goat Napper. If those don't remember, that is a card from the Time Spiral block, but it was quite good because there was a lot of changelings, and you could steal all of the changelings.
Oh, really?
I drafted the shit out of that
card. Oh man, I didn't even think of that.
And we see a V-Click and then a Jace Brainstorm from Gray. Yeah, against the changelings. Chameleon Colossus. Boom, that is mine now.
Changeling Titan, all that jazz.
Yeah.
Oh man, that would be insane.
Napper.
I just want to do it now.
Goat Napper. All right, and we see I believe pass the turnover there to Pat. He is thinking with his Ratchet Bomb. Most likely that's just going to sit on 0. He could, however, try to go up to 4 to kill the Jace. Typically the Miracles deck doesn't really interact with Ratchet Bomb that well. They might have a Disenchant or possibly Venser, but besides that, the Ratchet Bomb typically you can kill whatever you want with it. So definitely going up to 4 can be a plan, but it does look like Pat is not on that plan. He would lose his Trading Post if he did that.
So is that
And the goats, I'm not actually sure how relevant they are in this matchup. I'm not sure if Pat has any sort of equipment. There is probably he may have a Batter Skull in his deck, which might be slightly significant. But I think nope, he's just going to be sacking them with the Trading Post here. And I actually, sorry, the glare, I could not see what he returned there with that Trading Post.
Yeah, the glare is something that we're working on, but until now, we just kind of have to live with it. It's not too bad.
And he's going to untap and draw his card.
So many dreadnoughts. I was like,
Yeah, I definitely think Ratchet Bomb just staying on 0 is a good call, but I mean, when he has such like the threats like Fencer and Vendilion Click in play, it might be tempting to go up with it.
Absolutely. Now that that Vencer is in play, he would be more tempted to go up with the Ratchet Bomb. Unfortunately, Gray with the Crocus, he's got the Vencer Crocus combination going now. Pat opted to Wasteland the Volcanic Island instead of the Crocus, which was ended up being a big mistake because actually Gray did not have red cards in his deck most likely in this matchup.
It didn't actually cut him. It cut him off one land, but I mean, you'd rather just cut him off an actual utility land at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And now Gray with the Crocus Vencer, he's also got Crocus Vendilion Click. He's probably going to be able to control this game, and his plan is now to just attack Pat to death with those little guys. And we see
Snapcaster Disenchant on the trading post. That's just brutal.
I believe he sacked it to itself. And we see Gray on tap here.
This is kind of an interesting plan from Gray's side. Like, if he did side in the Vencer, just going on the creature beatdown plan, like, all his creatures get a lot of value.
Absolutely. His plan is to just play 2/2s with a lot of value on them, essentially, and beat Pat to death. The Mud deck does not actually have answers to creatures. You know, Pat's plan to answer these things is going to be playing like a Worm Coil, you know, or Clodolta the Forge Master to get something great. But with that Crocus Vencer, Pat is going to have a very difficult time winning here.
And still, Jason Field too. If he doesn't have the Lightning Greaves, I mean, he does have the Lightning Greaves, but if he still has to be able to equip it. Gray has like 5 cards in hand. He probably has a Swords of Plowshares.
And he has that Vencer. Anytime he could just bounce it and recast it.
Yeah.
He could bounce the Greaves or bounce what it got attached to in response to the equip, and keep that Jace alive. Pat's thinking here, how do I get out of this situation? We see a Vesuva coming down there for Pat, and a Metal Worker. I do not believe that's what he needs in this situation. And Gray says that's fine. He's going to put it on the Lightning Greaves. In response, the Crocus will be used, bouncing the Vencer. The Vencer will get played, and he is going to bounce the Chalice of the Void in response to the Metal Worker equip. Was that it?
Yeah, I'm guessing he has a Swords of Plowshares in hand and wants to be able to cast it here.
That would make sense, yeah. Because you definitely wouldn't want to put more artifacts in Pat's hand, and he does have the Swords of Plowshares, and that Metal Worker will be exiled.
So it looks like at this point, Gray's kind of got Pat in the soft lock, the Vencer, Vendilion Click, Caracas soft lock.
Yep, and that's 5 damage a turn, which is nothing to snooze at. Yeah, Pat had a very hard time coming back from this board position by Gray. He's attempting a Chalice of the Void.
I was thinking, too, even if Pat did end up having a big guy in hand and he did top deck the Cavernous Souls, Vencer doesn't actually counter a spell.
It does not. It just simply returns it to your hand. Yeah. So he could always Vencer it back to his hand. He can Vencer it even if it lands. Yeah, Pat, I'm not sure how he comes back into this game at this point. Gray with a grip of cards here. Well, let's see what he's got, and he's attempting the Chalice again.
Chalice of the Void, but it looks like this time it's on 4.
Oh, you didn't make it, huh?
On 5. I'm going to get a check on that.
Chalice on 5. I actually don't think that counters anything. Is it on 5?
It is on 5.
I do not believe that counters anything in the Miracles deck besides maybe an Entreat for 2.
Entreat for 1. Actually.
Oh, Entreat for 1. Oh, and Force of Will.
And Force of Will.
It does counter Force of Will.
And Misdirection.
Oh yeah, sorry. Entreat for
1. Because XX white. And if X is 1.
Oh yeah. Sorry, yeah. Entreat for 1. Hardcast Entreat for 1 Angel. Yeah. 5 mana. It does counter Force of Will. Actually, I have done that before against the Miracles deck. I've played a Chalice on 5 and then a Blightsteel Colossus.
Yeah.
When my opponent revealed Force Will off of Counterbalance.
At least you didn't Chalice on 5 and then top deck the Godolphin Forge Master.
Yeah,
that would have been a very
that unfortunately for Pat, that does walk out his Godolphos, though. Again, if he does have Counter to Souls, and that looks like a Vendilion Click, which is sending a Worm Coil to the bottom of the library. And that's the game. Pat gives it up. And we have Gray winning 2-0. Blue White Miracle is over 12. Yeah, that card advantage, Chase the Mind Sculptor, Venser Krakus, all kinds of things.
There's several Miracles players up here, and like all of them kind of agree. If at any point they drew like 3 cards off Chase the Mind Sculptor, that game's like in the bag at that point.
Yeah.
There's very few board states that you like can't come back from a game if you have like drawn 3 cards.
Absolutely, the control cards are so powerful. Just being able to 1 for 1 your opponent, 2 for 1 your opponent while drawing cards every turn, pretty tough to beat.
Yeah, definitely. Is that kind of how you expect the Miracles games to play out for the Mud player, or do you see more of a back and forth usually?
Well, it typically is more of a back and forth. Actually, the Mud deck. If it goes too late, the Miracles player will run over the Mud deck. However, the Mud deck does have a lot of tools to be able to compete in the long game. Pretty much what they have to do is either just crush them early, get out your turn 2 Sundering Titan, some nonsense like that. Your early big guy, Karn Liberated, for instance. Or you can kind of play the late game and try to lock them down with Chalice of the Void on 1. To lock out, the Source of Plowshares, the Brainstorms, all of the good cards. And then you just try to, go after the Crocuses with your Wastelands. You have 4 Wastelands. Usually they play about 2 Crocus, usually. And so take those out, and then you just play the long game where you just wait for Cavern of Souls, and you start slamming cards they can't deal with.
Yeah, it mostly just depends on like what the hand you get or like your play style. What does that depend on mostly?
It mostly depends on the hand you get. A little bit on your sideboard plan too. We saw a decent amount of cards of him. We don't know if he left in cards like Trinisphere.
Yeah. You don't like that card in this matchup?
I do not. No, it can do things, but again, it's one of those cards that, especially against these controlling decks, you can't have cards that make the game go longer. You want to finish this game as fast as possible.
See, in that game, definitely wouldn't have been that relevant.
No, I mean, Vendilion Clay, Jace the Mind Sculptor,
and Venser.
I mean, it would have countered a Force of Will. I mean, it would have prevented a Force of Will, maybe.
Yeah.
But
I think we did see like a disenchant that game, so that definitely could have just gone to the Trinisphere, if not the Trading Post. Like Gray definitely didn't need to get rid of the Trading Post.
No, absolutely not. The Mud deck. In this matchup, it wants to land a Lodestone Golem. It wants to put pressure on the Miracles player and have the Miracles player they need to tap out on their turn, spend a lot of mana to deal with what you have, and then you crush them.
Yeah, I think for this deck, it's actually, in comparison to the Mud deck that you play, this deck is generally one of the decks that goes longer, just because it's playing the Cloud Post, Vesuva.
A lot more resilience in its mana base, for sure.
Right, and then it also gets to play like cards, sometimes like Kozilek and Ulamog, where it wants to get to like 10, 12 mana, like more so than your deck.
Yeah.
Just so it can actually cast those spells.
Absolutely.
Less so on the Godolphin Forge Master plan, more so on the cast big.
A little less of it all in. It sacrifices some speed, but it adds consistency, especially against Wasteland, which is nice. We have Gray here. You want to talk?
No, I don't want to.
All right.
Get out of here.
He is the champion. He is the champion. We have played many times. Always good games. Pat, you want to talk?
The matchup gets worse and worse each
time. And worse and worse each time. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking,
it's a tough one. I
was actually thinking about this because Gray this weekend made the decision to put in disenchants rather than wear and tears, which is a decision that we haven't seen a lot in the Miracle sideboard. And I think it's actually relevant because it would actually get countered from Chalice on 1 if he was trying to destroy his artifacts, right? Because it's 1 mana.
Red side's 2 mana.
Red side's 2 mana. Yeah. I'm just wrong.
You're just all around wrong.
What is the choice then for putting
Wasteland? So
Wasteland.
You can play just basics and still get cast your disenchant.
Yeah. Have you ever cast this or wear and tear for both sides though?
Like once.
Was it that good?
Kill their Batterskull and their Detention Sphere.
The best was I killed a Sword of Fire and Ice and a
Ether Vial?
No. It's the
Heath Battle is
the
definitely-
Oh,
three
artifact. Just kidding.
What's the enchantment? Spirit Labyrinth.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
Yeah, I've seen
Boom.
some crazy plays with wear and tear. It's
Yeah.
also like
I can see wear and tear being good against like lands
yeah.
or like some variant.
just kill like a mana bond or something like that if you get
Yeah.
lucky.
And a chalice for one.
Exploration, Chalice Void.
What did you get guys comment on the challenge for 5?
Oh, we commented that doesn't counter very many cards against Gray's deck, but that I have actually done it before to lock out Force of Will. Yeah.
Well, you were saying how it would have been better to do it on 3 or 4, just to not get out of the Ventus or the big.
Yeah, we thought when you cast it, you might have been doing it on 4 because he had that Venser Crocus lot going.
Yeah.
You cast it on 4. Hopefully, you can shut that off.
Yeah, a bunch of creatures.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, he went on the beatdown plan, the value beatdown plan. Can be tough to deal with.
Yeah, and like the fact that he already casted the Swords of Plowshares. It's like it's no point in doing it for 1.
They're pretty ballin'.
Unless you had another one, but like now I also had like a Phyrexian core. So if I cast it at the one controller, then I could have just like sacked it and get like a couple.
Oh right, if say target Swords Plowshare or
Yeah.
something like that, you can sack it, get a couple of 3/3 worms there. Yeah, and that game just seemed like he got the value cards out, he got the Jace, he got the Venser Crocus, and
My opening hand was a couple of Cloudpost cards, Phyrexian core, Chalice, and then Lowstone Golem. And then Lowstone Golem, like it's a beatdown card, but it's not a card that I wanted to see in the matchup.
oh really?
Yeah.
Just because it's not high impact enough.
It's not very high impact because as the most because it's terminable. And so I can't really get much value out of that. It can make him pay 1 for his counter spells, which I mean he'll probably have mana for anyways.
Yeah, when you played that Lightning Greaves when he had the Jace at 5, I was like, ooh, this is a Lodestone Golem. Greaves
Yeah,
kill the
swing in.
Jace. I was like, ooh, that was your way to really get back in that game.
The side end that I had for him was Karn and Snare and Bridge for against his Angels.
So you had the Ratchet Bomb for the Angels.
2 Ratchet Bombs, and then the Cloud Post.
Did you end up?
Not the Cloud Post, but the Trading Post.
Oh yeah, the Trading Post.
Yeah.
Did you end up taking out the Trinispheres?
I left in 1 just for the off chance that I could like
Go on like the Sundering Titan Trinisphere type of plan.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But it was both awkward matchups.